Hey, welcome everybody. Thanks for coming this morning. We had such a great conversation last week about helping our students overcome performance anxiety as well as just practice related anxiety. And we wanted to continue that conversation. So, Karen Faye, go ahead and take that away.
All right, let's just do a quick review of what we talked about last week. We talked about our performance being equal to our potential minus all of the little itty bitty things that get in our head, which we called, does anyone remember?
Was it the inner
Was it
voice?
distractions? Or
That's what I was gonna say, distractions.
They're the
But
distractions, but not quite the distractions. That was only part of
interference.
it.
Was it interference?
Interference! Chantel, if I had a prize, I'd give it to you now. So all of our interferences ended up growing into everyone knows some interference. Everyone knows it, even if they are a fantastic performer. And I know you found it very hard to relate because you don't experience performance anxiety. So you are going to be an important part of this conversation, if you don't mind, because we all want to be like you if you don't have any performance anxiety. I mean, we were also sort of corrected into saying everyone has some degree of performance anxiety. Everyone, needs that adrenaline and able to pull off a magnificent performance. It needs more energy than playing for your students, right? Okay, so all of those interferences ended up rolling into a big giant disgusting ball that is called MPA. MPA is musicians performance anxiety. It's not very hard to remember. It's just a specific career that experiences it more to a clinical level because our entire livelihood can sometimes depend on it. Hi. Yes, I was just talking about how you were like, yes, everyone, it's 100%. Everyone experiences it somehow. When it gets to that clinical level at MPA, then we're really trying to reschool ourselves. And as today's teachers, it is our responsibility to train our students to veer away from these common distractions, etc. The things that the inner game we need to include in our program. So we do. I just want to read you something that was from 1973. Okay, it's been going on a long time. It's affecting about a quarter of musical professionals. Okay, so to a clinical level, it says, here we go. She's a violinist. Her name was Kato Havas, Kato Havas, Havas. With the accumulation of technical difficulties, examinations, international competitions, the positive side of music making, the overriding desire to communicate soon gives away to anxieties and fears. Will I exceed at the audition? Will the great man teach me? 1973. Will the great person teach me? Updated version. Will I win first prize and thus become known worldwide overnight? These are concerns for some people. It's almost inevitable that by the time a student reaches maturity, the importance and constant evaluation of his own self becomes the dominant factor in his career and his or their career, and stops them from fulfilling their potential of the right divine. Okay, that's a packed little paragraph. Any comments before I delve into a few of the points I wanted to to make.
Can we read
Open
it
it.
somewhere, or can you
Oh my
share
goodness,
it?
yes, I will photocopy. I'm gonna Xerox that now. Oh, here we go.
I was thinking of the parallels that can happen between some of the inner world that that person is talking about in the performance and all of that, compared to what we experience sometimes on social media. That sometimes we
Good
have some
discussion
similar
point.
inner games going on.
Yeah, social medias can be very unkind. If you just take a second, have a look at it. Now, when you read it this time, have a look and see it through the eyes of a perfectionist. As much as you can tell about a perfectionist. Because perfectionism and NPA hold hands, sweaty, cold, clammy, jittery hands. Yeah. Okay, this is the next section. I would, you know what? I just highlighted things out of this book, so to talk about. This is what my next point is. There's perfectionism this is how perfectionism is related. Okay, the habitual rehearsal of self-defeating mantras and negative evaluation. That's what we do right here. This is what I think we probably all have a little bit of within us to varying degrees, and this is our point that we need to be working with our students. Okay, so yes, things are going to get harder because you're going to get better. You can't get better without playing more difficult pieces and increasing, the difficulty. But over pressuring a student by meeting an unrealistic deadline, putting them in an unrealistic competition. Unrealistic meaning they're gonna be noticeably in the bottom third of what they get evidence of later, like a video of the performance. They don't want to be, no one wants to be in the bottom third. And this little phrase here, the overriding desire to communicate soon gives way to anxieties and fears. So the thing is that everybody wants to use music's a language. They want to communicate it. They want to communicate this piece to you ASAP. They know it's going to please you. They know that it will, they know that it's the end of the journey of that piece. And everything is fast, everything is convenient, everything is rushed. So my sort of advice just off the top is slow practice. If your student has NPA, don't use deadlines. It has the word dead in it. Use flex exams, use other methods of evaluation. Sometimes people work really well under deadlines, and some people, they are crushed with the idea of a deadline. Their inner game takes over. I've had some experience with that actually myself. Deadlines scare me, but let's move this up one more second. The habitual rehearsal of self-defeating mantras and negative evaluation. All right, that and this. And sometimes I'm just going to give you the verbiage, okay? Because we know this. We haven't really talked about it out loud and made it, given it words for us to make somewhat of a curriculum sidebar with. Okay, so this isn't going to come in your method books. This is how you teach alongside of your method books. And by all means, make notes. What can you say? Let's take a few minutes and just write in the chat a few things that you think that would work with some of your students, just to center them on the learning and lose this like pathological entanglement with their inner game, where they're just like getting all of those self-defeating mantras, and they have to evaluate themselves. They just can't do it in a negative way. That's tricky business. That's tricky business for us adults, because we didn't even really get that sort of education back in the day, right? What can you tell your student, Carrie, that's like, what would you tell your son? What would you tell anyone that you care about when they're obviously feeling frustrated at the piano, and you see them do that Sesame Street thing, the puppet slamming his head on the piano. I used to pretend to be that guy. I thought that was cool. I thought all concert pianists did that. That's what I wanted to be when I grew up. All right, so we got 5 messages. All right, focus on celebrating progress. That is, Piano Marvel is really good at laying it out for that too, because of the learning charts there. Focus at one thing on a time. That's something my husband tells me every day. Excellent. I like it. Okay, celebrate the establishment of habits, like practicing daily, for example. Yeah, for sure. Habits, positive habits. How do we make those positive? Enjoy the progress. Don't hate the process. Ooh, that rhymes. I like it. I'm going to eat that one. That's tattoo worthy, Valerie. Yeah.
Yeah.
When I have students doing or feeling this, I recommend them to search for real perfection. It does not come from effort. It comes from a dance between constants and let go. God gives his beloved sleep. Oh, I totally interpreted that psalm differently. I was like, I'm just kidding. It's going to get harder, but you can do this. It will just take a little bit more time. Yeah, it's going to get harder.
Isn't Cindy, aren't you the one who has on your wall, we can do hard things?
Yeah.
I have a little thing that says we can do hard things, and then they get to put their name. Everybody has a name thing up there. And if they progress in their method rank and their technique rank each week, they get to put their name under that sign, and then they get a little sticker in this little chart that we keep. But yeah.
So good. I like my niece has a t-shirt with "we can do hard things" on it. And I just thought, Nancy, I wish I had a shirt like that for me. You have to make mistakes at first. If you didn't make mistakes, you wouldn't need to learn piano, because you'd already be the greatest pianist of all time. Making mistakes is the whole point. Thank you. I like that too. I like
It's my life philosophy. It's how I go about everything.
It's a great philosophy. I like to change the meaning of perfect to whole.
Ooh, who said that?
Nice. Kara.
Okay.
Was the piece delivered as a whole idea, mistakes and all? Evelyn loves that one. She hasn't said so, but I know she loves that one. That's a good one, Kara. I don't even see Kara. Where is she? There you are. There you are. I have 2 favorite stories that I like to tell, and I'll remind students of these stories whenever needed. Too lengthy to type, so when there's an appropriate moment, I'll tell them. Involves humor, which always lightens things up. I agree. All right, go ahead.
All right. I like to tell kids a story that I read in a cookbook that I inherited from my grandma. It was A Joy of Cooking, but it was printed during World War II, you know, the time when things were rationed and everything. So there was a little story about a chef whose name was Henri. He was a French chef, and at the age of 16, he was hired to be chef for the royal family in England. So he was the king and queen's chef at the age of 16. One morning, he was preparing breakfast for the prince, and I think it was Prince Albert and his girlfriend. And he was preparing breakfast at the table, directly at the table, and he was making crepes. And the horrible thing happened that right at the big moment he was cooking the sauce caught on fire and just blazed up. And he was just so shocked and thinking, oh, my life is over right now. And he just took a breath and he tasted the sauce and it was delicious. And he took a breath and pretended that this was the normal thing, that he'd planned this all out. And it was, he had it, he said, I've invented a new recipe for your highness. And I would like to call it Crepes Albert. And the prince said, oh, no, name it for the lady. Her name is Suzette. And that is how Crepe Suzette got invented. So I'll ask the kids, what did you learn from this story? And of course, I will reinforce that in a mistake, sometimes a mistake can turn out to be great. And number two, keep going like nothing has happened.
Yeah, just do not react.
And then I will say, well, is your hair on fire? If something happened, if your hair's on fire, then maybe you can stop. But otherwise, no. So that's one. And another thing is that famous quote that you probably all heard from Thomas Edison when he was trying to construct a battery for a certain thing. And he'd been working on it for a long time and made thousands of experiments that failed. And so people said to him, why are you doing this? You've just made mistakes out. It doesn't work. And he said, I haven't made thousands of mistakes. I've learned thousands of ways that don't work.
It's all about the framing. I like it.
So awesome.
So I like those two and remind kids of them whenever it's appropriate. But I think
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank
Those
you,
are
Lily.
those
Those are
are
awesome.
great. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna tell people
Grape Suzette.
those stories.
That's a great one. Catching on Fire. I mean, and think of the poor kid. He was 16 years old working in front of the King and Queen of England. That must have been some major pressure. And
Yeah.
he just
I
smiled
can't
as if
imagine.
everything is normal. I planned this all out.
Yeah.
He had to change his underwear.
Yeah, probably. Okay, I just put up 3 different sort of categories of perfectionism. One is socially prescribed, one is self-oriented, and the other is other-oriented. And just to give you an example of each type, socially prescribed is somebody that puts and I would say an unusual amount of pressure on themselves to do very, very well. They just that's the way they like it, you know. People feel particularly pressured by excessively high standards set for them by other people, by their significant others, their family members. But there's always this incessant fear of a negative evaluation that keeps at the center and keeps, pretty much everything you do is organized around this socially prescribed perfectionism. Always someone else influencing them. So that's a common theme in perfectionism. It's even in self-oriented perfectionism. A really good example of a socially oriented perfectionism is it's a little bit more severe. It's something like an eating disorder. It's a constant struggle. Your life is organized around how you want for yourself to here. Let me just read this so that I'm giving a good one. Self-oriented perfectionism. Those with SOP tend to agree with generalizations like, it makes me uneasy to see an error in my work, and I must work to my full potential at all times in an effort to avoid failure and humiliation. It's often associated with greater productivity and career success. So they are getting, their outer game is feeding them just fine. Their outer game is like, they are beating down their inner game to achieve in their outer game. But it's self-oriented perfectionism. It's also linked to depression, anxiety, eating disorders, maladaptive cognitions, which basically means that a person is incapable of compromising their standards. Okay, so even when there's a really legit reason to not perform at 10, when it would be totally okay, you're playing for a bunch of 5-year-olds, you can probably handle an 8 today there, you self-oriented perfectionist. Sop. Let's not call people sops though. Yeah, they're just like, no, 10 all the time. And the last one, the other oriented perfectionism is when we just put it on others. So we have an unrealistic perfectionism, and our unrealistic standard is then given, it's handed down to our kids, to our students, to our loved ones. And that's a tricky one, because we're the teacher. We're going to be, if we have either of the first two, we're going to give it. That's what we know. And it's not uncommon, right? This is in most people. Out of the people that that are really great with music, how many of them made it to career level music? Nah. I know. Why do you think? One, it doesn't pay very well. Okay, I can attest to that.
I don't understand the question. Sorry.
Oh, out of all the people that you know to have been extremely musical and very good and competent and had a lot to offer the world in terms of music, how many of them were able or chose to, whether or not they were able or not, how many of them chose to choose music as a career?
Well, for those of you who know Josh Wright, he kind of has a YouTube channel and talks about technique and such. He had a video where he talked about the fact that, technically he could be a better musician than he is. But he chose that he wanted the balance of spending time with his children and his wife. And in order to do that, he had to restrict how much time he put into piano. So he could have a career that brought him to different levels, but his priorities were, in a few different places. And so he chose that actively.
All right.
Yeah.
So
I also wonder, because most of the musicians I know, they have already been musicians. That's why I know them. So I do not know if they have chosen exactly to become that.
Okay.
But they are not like superstars, and they are not very, very wealthy. I mean, most of them, some yes, but most of them are like normal teachers, or they earn the same money. They are not rich because they are good.
Yeah, and where do you think that the I love it when I lose my words when I'm being recorded. Woo! Okay. Where do you think the time? Thank you.
Yeah, I ask
we can
also
just
myself,
bleep that part out.
Is there a correlation between being good and being having a career? I mean, I do not know if everybody who has a music career is really a good musician. I mean,
Yeah,
there are so
okay,
many
there's a couple
other
of crisscrosses
aspects
here.
of
Yeah. So in some ways, I would like to say a lot of the types of people, I think that the one of the main markers for success in career and in your life is having the tools to keep your perfectionism or your likeness to perfectionism, because it's not a problem. It's not a problem because you have the tools to keep it at bay. Does that make sense? For instance,
constancy. Does this word exist?
consistency.
Consistency. Well,
Yeah,
no,
consistency.
not consist that you continue always doing the same thing. To
No,
be
I was
constant.
talking about having the tools to keep perfectionism at bay, so that it doesn't become something that is dysfunctional. Okay, because then you go right over into, you're in mental illness territory when your perfectionism gets, whether it's socially prescribed or self-oriented, then or from others, or to others, you're giving yourself a real hard time if you can't develop the tools. So as teachers, we need to put in the tools. So tool number one, you said it yourself, priorities and time management. Those were like literally, I think Josh may have pre-read this presentation, or at least the book that I'm presenting with.
You may have.
So time management, priorities. Can anyone just like throw a couple more in the chat? What do you think? What can keep us in a healthy frame of perfectionism? First of all, we need to communicate to our students that they need to at least try.
So
Right?
Karen Faye.
And then perfectionism being, maladaptive down to here. This is what we want to teach. Yes.
Yeah, sorry. So Brene Brown said something
Yes.
interesting about perfectionism. She said, perfectionism is the ultimate fear. People who are walking around as perfectionists, they're ultimately afraid that the world is going to see them for who they really are and they won't measure up.
Yep.
And I was going to say, actually, Tabe and I have talked about something that's kind of on the flip side of what we're talking about, but it plays in. If you've ever been
opposite cusps. Yeah.
Yeah. If you've ever been separate because you're doing well, like say you're in school and you just don't belong or feel like you belong because you're actually doing better than the other students or something in that regard, you can actually have a fear of doing well because you want to belong, you want to fit in, and you want to be part of. And so I know you wouldn't put that in the realm of perfection, but I think it interplays with it in some degree as well with these students. If they go out and they're like, their piece is so much more impressive. Some kids don't mind. They're like, I'm awesome. It's great.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. My mom told me I'm wicked.
But some kids can be mean, and adults, I'm not saying kids, but I'm just going from different perspectives and just saying one way to look at this idea of being perfect is we really are exposing ourselves when we perform. We're showing our authentic selves and what we have prepared. And it is a risk. It really is. And some people just take that with great ease and enjoy it and love it. And some people, it feels very, very threatening.
Yeah.
So for different reasons, the one I just mentioned, as well as the ones we've been talking about in the past. So I know that didn't exactly answer your question, but I wanted to throw that in there.
No, I think that's what I asked for people to kind of say. So here I'm going to try to write with my mouse. Okay. So be wary of what I'm trying to write here. Okay. So I think that this weird shape that I will turn into. Okay, we can't do that. I'm too perfectionist to keep this going. Okay. All right. This is where everyone is using a healthy amount of perfectionism. Okay, so I'm going to start typing very soon. What is healthy perfectionism? This whiteboard business is not very cool, is it? Gross. Okay.
It's
Healthy
perfectly
perfectionism.
beautiful.
There we go. Say, I did that on
Positive
purpose.
self-talk.
There's my positive self-talk. Yeah, see, I'm over here, which was what I was about to write next. Let's just type it now because we don't need to. Okay, so let's put ultimate fear over here, just walking around in ultimate fear. I was typing a little bit more, but we'll just put this here, and can you put it to the back? Yes. Okay. So here you're walking around in ultimate fear. Here you are. Let's see. What are you going to do here? This is where you are in ultimately your ultimate level of passivity. Okay. You're being stupid, is like sort of a stupid amount of care. I don't care. Oh, and what do you say here?
What was that?
I said, yes, bye, Gwen. What do you say? That's all.
She's asking for more water, and she's been drinking out of the squirt bottle. So I'll get her some more water.
Kids love
I
that.
see. Ultimate fear. Okay, so you're constantly engaged in ultimately continuously engaged in fear because you either don't want to be found out or you don't want to be caught unprepared, or well, let's what do you see? What do you see going on here except for this crazy scribbles?
I would like
wanted to add.
Oh, go ahead.
Go Valerie, and then
Okay.
Today.
Okay. Yeah, this is really bringing it home because I have almost like a textbook case student that I have, and I just had him this morning, and I've had him for about 9 years, and he's an adult, and so let me turn this down. So he's an adult, and he actually before he retired, he was a pilot. So as a pilot, he knows the simulation of keeping the plane from crashing or burning. So he has taken that same behavior or that same learning and training into his piano. So, and so like this morning, we were talking about it. I said, you are my textbook for my Zoom session today. So I told him, I said, Kelvin, you're going to have to remember to not feel like, okay, I got to get through this lesson or get through this song without crashing and burning. I told him he has to kind of learn how to just pull back, just like, you're going through the simulation, shut this off, do this in the airplane. However, because that's where his thinking is. And I said, well, are you enjoying what you're doing he says, no. He said, that's the thing. I'm just trying to get to the end and get us there safely. And so that's what, with him, I said, Kelvin, I said, you just got to remember to pull back and then just, relax, go in, just work the process to, just relax into that, atmosphere. So this is perfect for him as being the self-oriented perfectionist, because he is definitely in that. He is a perfectionist. He's very intelligent, very, just such an interesting man. But that right there, and I asked him, I said, I said, what are you feeling? Are you feeling fear? He says, yes. He said, I'm afraid. I said, and then of what? He says, I would rather crash and burn and get ready to crash and burn with that airplane than play this song. I said, Kelvin, I said, really? I said, he says, because it feels like I am just defeated. I said, really? So it's interesting with it. Now I'm loving it because he's learning, he's learning how to not take what his career was and putting, and not separating the two in piano lessons. So
Yeah, that's it, and it carries through, right? Like it carries some your personality traits. They might have come from somewhere very different. Like maybe they're also in dancing and they're constantly looking in a mirror with 20 other girls and needing to be the best in like visually, or maybe they haven't really been brought through the most important part, which is also enjoying it. My business is like, my tagline is love to play, because if you don't love playing, if you can't say to yourself while you're playing, this is fun, at least
But
most of the time, then you're
you
doing it wrong.
and you know what? And then I said, "Oh, come on, come." I said, "This is so fun." He said, "That's so morbid."
So morbid.
You're calling this fun. He said, "You're calling this fun." And we just laugh. He's such a fun person. But we laugh about that. And I said, I want you to enjoy this,
Yeah.
and I think he does. It's just the fact that he says, these songs, because he's at level 6 right now. So he said, so on Piano Marvel. So, he's like, woo, it's just the process of going through it,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So the next I saw there's a couple more hands, but I do have we got about 20 minutes. So if we can keep it brief, then I think I'll still be good to finish. Who wants to go?
Tabea.
Tabea
I will
and
be.
Lily. And okay, go ahead.
It connects with you. I just wanted to add that if we want to learn something, we need to connect it with positive emotions.
Yes.
Anything else will be forgotten. I mean, if people are very rational, this can help a perfectionist to understand why letting go is important. Then what Valerie was saying, I do not know if that would work for this case of airplane pilot, but I have done all my life dangerous sports, which is different. But I mean, this type of sports like jumping with the skydiving and horse riding and these kind of things where you can kill you each time you do something. And what these people usually don't do, I mean, the crazy ones who do that on a continuous basis, is worst case scenarios. You really imagine the worst. So imagine the airplane will crash. What will happen? I mean, usually you can imagine like war and torture and all these kind of things, but everything comes to the same end, which is death. And yeah, it's a little bit strange, but that is not really something we should be afraid of, because it will happen anyway.
Oh, that's a hard one to teach your students, though.
Yeah, you have to do that
teach them they won't
on
die.
a practical way. But usually when you play a piano, you do not die. You could perhaps fear that you will faint, you will lose consciousness or something like that. Imagine it. Imagine it up to the latest consequence. What will happen? And imagine everything. This really works. I do not really know why it works, but it works. It helps. And the other thing is, I mean, we speak about real perfectionists in the sense of they do a lot of training. They're not just upset if they have a bad score. So we assume these are people who work very hard. So the most important is to work on cutting. Before the performance, the day before, take them on a trip and do something totally different. Perhaps your parents have to pay you for not teaching them piano, for doing something different, which has nothing to do with the piano the day before. This is what I meant with this Bible sentence. I actually made the experience, this is not only my experience, that people who do a lot put effort in something. When they dream and sleep, and you only dream and sleep if you let go and rest, the best ideas come up. And also the whole performance, you will just sit there and feel good, and then it will be good. It's the only way you can be perfect is letting go. That's all.
That's good.
Awesome. Was there, and Lalit, you had your hand up? Yeah.
So I think that very few of us have students that are taking piano because they want to be professionals, but everyone needs to have us be like a priest for them, where we're working on their inner soul and their inner happiness in all areas, so they're well balanced, and these fears are not negative. They don't have these negative fears. So when you're training them, you know, there's so many layers you work on. So you work for perfectionism in fingering and timing and everything like that. And then you have to have a plan B for what are you going to do when the inevitable happens. And Tabea's mentioning about visualizing the worst. Well, I think the visualizing is really important, but you got to visualize your way out of the mistake. So if they know the chord structure and they know their scales, and that you show them, now what if you hit this wrong note here, where will you go? It's a pass, we call it a passing tone, because it's beauty in music when you hit something that sounds sour and then move to something great. But you don't want to end a meal with a sour lemon in your mouth. But if you have a sour lemon for a moment and then go to something refreshing, that's beautiful. And you teach them the joy of improvising so that they can do that. All the great composers did that. Chopin, Bach, Beethoven were all famous improvisers. And if you have the ability to improvise, then you're not so afraid if you make a mistake, because you know you can get through it. And so you lose the fear, and then you don't make the mistake. But you have to plan on knowing what to do. And so I make them practice mistakes and improvising their way out of it. And I love, Cammie had a presentation on when she did a recital thing, and she had the blooper reel.
That was awesome.
That was so wonderful. And she gave me that little thing. I made the recital tape for YouTube with the performance and then the blooper reel. Each kid had to have their beautiful song and then the blooper. And we talk about, everyone has to have their blooper. And we all talk about, yes, everyone has the blooper. It's natural, it's normal, we all have it, and we can laugh and enjoy life when things like this happen. It's perfectly great. Just smile and enjoy life and move on. And if you catch us on fire, you just smile and pretend that everything's great. Anyway.
We're on the same wavelength here. We actually practice making mistakes. We have many rehearsals. And I just drum in over and over, what's more important, to play the right notes or to keep the timing going? And we practice that. And we practice, let's play a piece and make a mistake. And the thing is, if you keep the timing going, that's what your audience expects. So they just think that was an interesting variation on the original, and you just made that up on purpose, if they even notice that it sounded different than it was supposed to. So we deliberately, just go over this. Keep the time when you're playing for performance, not for learning, but when you're playing for performance, keep the timing going, and nobody will even know it was a mistake. They'll just think it was the way it's supposed to be today. And I think that helps my kids. I also make mistakes for them. I play a piece and I ask them, did anybody notice the mistakes? Well, they probably didn't. That helps everybody get comfortable with these mistakes.
I think so too. I always introduce my recitals as, everyone's going to make mistakes. Just get it out of your head that no one's going to make a mistake. I make at least 100%, 100 mistakes per recital. I'm like accompanying 30 kids. Are you kidding me? Like ain't nobody got time to get all that right, and I'll just kind of self-deprecate a little bit at the beginning, and that seems to make everybody more comfortable. I should work on that part though.
Well, in something I discovered is I can inadvertently create perfectionism in my students because like I did something that brought this to my attention. They would play it and I thought I'm going to ask them how they felt about it. So they would play it and I'm like, what did you think? How did it sound? They're like, it was good. It was awful. Like it was not good. And I thought, oh, okay. So I realized when that there's a dance of these positive emotions and communications, because if you go straight into, okay, this needs to be fixed, they thought it was great. Now they're really like, oh, like it's not great.
No deflating. Which brings me steady in. Oh, and okay, one more, Anne.
Yeah, I've told this story a long time ago, but I don't know if any of you were here, so stop me if you've heard this before. When I was in high school, and I think I was around 15, I was invited to be the featured entertainment with an oboe solo at a kind of prestigious little dinner. It was, I think it was an award dinner for some club or something. It was pretty fancy at a local hotel, and I was the entertainment. Should I stop? Keep going. Keep going. Okay.
Keep going.
Nobody remembers.
I mean, I have to know.
I remember it, but I don't
Okay,
know.
you're
I think
not going to tell. Okay. So, not very far into the piece, what happens is my reed actually breaks.
Oh, yeah.
Come on, it splits. And this can happen with oboes. And I honestly, I squeaked a little bit. I tried to do something with it. I tried to fix it. I finally just had to sit down. There was nothing you could do with a broken reed. I didn't have a backup ready. And so that was the end of that. The next day, coming back into the school, I was humiliated. I thought everybody's going to be looking at me and I was going to be the laughing stock of everybody. And when it came time for the music class, nobody said anything. And I asked my music teacher, well, I made some comment like, did you hear about what happened? She hadn't even heard about it. And it just hit me like a ton of bricks. Nobody, even if they even noticed, they didn't care. If they did notice, they were on my side and did not really want to humiliate me further by making a big deal of it. And ever since then, honestly, I have just been freed of that whole anxiety that I have to do a good idea, because I thought, you know what? People don't really care that much. They're in the audience. They want you to do a good job. And if you don't, they're not going to take you off their friend list or something, like defriend you.
People are
Oh, we didn't have that
too,
back then, but you know what I mean.
yeah, they're too involved with, they're thinking about themselves and their interactions with, they're not as,
Yes.
unless they're really vindictive and
I have since applied that to, I have
to.
applied that to most other levels of life. Do people care what I'm
Very
wearing?
cool.
Do people care that
I was
laugh?
just gonna say, I really like your shirt.
too.
That's a nice plaid, dude. I like it. I like it. I'm not supposed to say dude anymore. My apologies. Okay, I got 9 minutes. I'm running with it. Okay. All right. Number 1, I would recommend. I had an experience a couple of weeks ago that I think puts anxiety in check. And this is something you could do with your students as a whole group. Open up your year with something like a big trampoline jumping party or a big swimming party or something.
Ann Hansen does it.
Oh, yes. Okay. I'm going to keep going. I want to hear it, but I got to keep going. We are trying to safely induce genuine anxiety. Okay. I was going down the river. I love the water. I had a life jacket on. No, I didn't. I didn't have a life jacket on, but I had a boogie board close by. I fell out of my really kind of cheap raft and I banged into a tree. The arse was knocked right off me with a bunch of terrible old rocks. I was just in one little spot. I had 2 bruises, 1 little light scratch. I thought I was going to die. And the burst of adrenaline was true, genuine fight or flight. And that has put all other anxiety in some perspective. Take your kids to a trampoline place where they're going to be in the air and not know exactly where they're going to land. Or
a ropes course.
Or a swimming
Horse
pool
riding.
with a high diving board or any of those. Put them in the chat so I can finish because I only have 7 minutes now. The second thing is take that genuine anxiety and put it on a scale. Put it on the end. And then put like restful dreaming sleep on the other end and give your kids a scale so that they can communicate to you where their anxiety level is in a lesson. Just give them a little ruler and a marker, and because they need to be able to communicate to you easily so that you're not communicating any negative anything that could be considered negative when they're on the higher end. Okay. So that you are reminded to reframe. You know, last time I said something like, yeah, that's harsh. You know, if they're on a 0, if they're feeling 0 anxiety and you're like, oh my goodness, sure, that sounded right harsh. That's not a big deal. They'll probably laugh at it. They might go up to a 2. They might be like, oh yeah, all right, noteworthy. I'll write that down. I will practice in a non-harsh way. If they're already at an 8, don't you dare tell them that they are sounding harsh. That's when you say, oh, I would love to hear that, you know, style an elephant feet turn into a beautiful little fairy dance or something, whatever our example was from last time. The other thing I would encourage for you to do at the beginning of your opening of your studio is to do this yourself. Take this test. It's nothing crazy. It's the 16 personalities. It's the nearest type explorer. Take it yourself, and where appropriate, have your kids do it too. Yes, Valerie, it is so good. Oh my goodness. It's basically like wearing a name tag, except instead of just telling your name, it's like telling people, you know, enough about you that they automatically have a way to communicate with you if they're interested. And if they're not interested, who cares about them? I'm not going to make, there is actually a joke in my household about getting name tags made up for our friends so that we can all learn to communicate better together, just because we're all about making fun of my great ideas in our household. But let's spend the last few minutes just doing one and sharing the response. See if you can you know, read up a little bit more about it. And if it's okay, if we do not have a topic for next week, I would love to talk about this in relation to, you know, how do we teach kids with this personality type? There's some really basic there's some really basic list items that we can use as a guide. All right, everyone, start now. Go. Woohoo! Go personality test. It's free, by the way. Oh, and you have to scroll down from, it's a big, giant website, very wide. It's very stretched out.
You know what I realize,
Mm.
Karen Faye? Probably it depends also at what age you answer
Oh, yeah.
certain questions,
Of
because
course.
experience really balances things out.
Mm-hmm. It does give you a pretty good entry level understanding of how to approach them wherever they are, though.
Oh, shall we
Just
put it here? Oh, okay.
yeah, I put mine there.
Why do you have a T after the letters? I only have the 4 letters.
Well, you must be just a true whatever 4 letters you are. My
Ah,
personality type has
okay. I
a
understand.
corollary.
So many different. That's cool.
Yeah.
What is this nearest type explorer you put in the chat? I didn't get that.
It's the type of it's just with the main
what
page
it's
of the
called.
test, just in case. Yeah.
It's cool.
It's called 16 personalities. You're an advocate. I knew it.
Where are you guys getting those letters?
Carrie, you're a protagonist. Of course you are. And you're an advocate. I'm married to an advocate. So I feel like, Anne, I know you and Cami just a little bit better now. Do you know what I'm saying? INFJ.
I haven't figured it out yet.
I have to check. I did this test 20 years ago.
This one is actually a new one. The Myers-Briggs one is probably the one you did do.
Yeah,
and it's
yeah,
very,
exactly.
yeah. I
similar.
think
It has different questions.
Yeah, this one's a little bit more popularized in pop culture because it's new, and it was sort of, for the lack of a better term, invented at a time when everyone could just share what their profiles were.
Yeah.
So Tabea, you're ENFJ.
That's what the internet says.
Yes. Well, it's and you may answer it differently each time, but I'll tell you,
Yeah.
I have done this 3 times, and I have always come out as a campaigner, always.
Interesting.
And I don't feel like I don't feel like I've really answered everything the same. but it always comes out.
We have a lot of advocates and protagonists. Is there
Yeah, we're
anybody?
a good bunch.
Let's see, diplomat.
That
Wait.
makes sense, Lily.
Is this two different things, protagonist and diplomat?
Yeah.
ENFJ, people
Look,
mastery.
it's written under diplomat as a subcategory. I don't know.
Oh, let's see. Okay.
So I've never seen the test before. I don't know what that means, but I had them email it to me. This is super fun. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, because it tells me a lot about you guys. Now it tells us about each other enough for us to communicate in an easier way. Okay. Anyone that starts their term with an E is extroverted primarily. Anyone that starts it with an I is introverted
Oh.
primarily.
Okay, got that. Yeah.
All right, that's great information. Do you want to introduce your introverted student with like happy dance? I'm so glad you're back after the summer. It's going to make them painfully uncomfortable. I've done it. I've made people uncomfortable with a happy dance. And you don't really, no one really wants to do that. I'm just wondering, do we have everyone's?
I'm sorry, not me. I'm sorry. I didn't start right away, so I'm sorry. I didn't.
Don't be sorry. Don't be sorry. My goodness, take your time.
Oh,
do your
defender. We have a
thing.
new one.
Cindy, you're a defender. Very close to an advocate, but just a little bit more oomph involved, right? No. They're just names. They're just titles that can let us know. I'm really interested in the 4 or 5 digits though, because I want to show you how it's broken down. Also, we are at 11:07. Is anybody interested in taking
Chantel's
this?
the same as me.
It's interesting to see the
Chantel.
percentages. Like for me on extroverted, that's almost 50-50, but intuitive is way 90-10.
Me
So
too. Yeah,
that
yeah.
percentages are important to see what you've got there.
Okay.
Do you
Cindy,
think
your defender, what was your code, Cindy?
My code was ISFJ-A, which I'm not sure what all that means, but yeah.
Yeah, so that,
What do they
you know
mean?
what? Do you want to keep going, or
I think that's fine.
I have
Whoever
a
needs,
repairman here.
yeah, go. Anybody who needs to leave, go ahead. It's nice to see you guys. I think it'd be good to at least finish up this thought before I end the recording. So yeah, go ahead and finish, and then we'll do that.
okay, all right. Oh my goodness. Okay, so if you I range from different sorts of, like mine is, I'm a campaigner, but I'm also a diplomat, and I also apparently love social engagement. So if I was your student, you could say, like, today I'm a turbulent campaigner. Apparently I'm not as at peace as I was the last time I took it, but my energy is always at 90%. So you're my teacher. What are you going to do with my energy?
Sorry?
I'm intuitive energy is up to 90%. What are you going to do with Lilith and I if we're your students? How do you treat very intuitive people?
Yeah, do more
I have no idea.
improvisation. Use that.
Use any way that someone is riding off of their feeling. Improv is the way to go. Anyone that is extroverted. I mean, lots of our students are extroverted. It determines how we interact with our environment, right? So an intuitive person is going to prefer to work with like on their own. Don't hold their hands. Don't move their hands. Don't avoid making any. Oh, it's so hard to do this inside of negative time. can I just make sure that I have everyone's stuff and continue on for next week? That's going to be like 3 weeks in a row. Is everybody okay with that? It's a bit much.
Oh,
What's our
so
next topic?
next week is our the kickoff for the method and technique challenge,
Right.
lesson challenge.
Okay.
But that usually doesn't take up the whole time. So if you want to like finish up this conversation at the end of next week, I think
Okay, yeah. Because I do have recommendations for each of the different kinds, and I would
Enough
like
of
to.
this. You can't do too much of this. This is really useful.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So let's everybody take their own personality traits and your percentages. Do the test a few different times so that you know like that you're always landing on one. See what your variations are over the week, on different days, different ways you feel. And we will meet again after our intro to the method and technique.
Yeah, I guess we're calling it the lessons challenge. So.
The lessons challenge. Okay, lessons challenge. Introduction next week, and then we'll put together a chart of things to share.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Perfect.
Cool.
Also, really quick kind of announcement. We are definitely going to have our first in-person teacher, conference isn't the right word, but just like a get together with a little bit of education.
Workshop.
Workshop might be a good term for that. The first one will be in Colorado, since it's Canada Marble headquarters.
That makes sense.
The one after that, I think, is going to be Utah, where we have lots and lots of teachers. From there, not really sure how that'll go. I really do want to try to get one down near. I know Chris Blackman in Tennessee. I think he is. I think he has kind of offered his studio, so that would be one. So anybody in those nearby states would be good for that. We're trying to get as many as possible in as many locations as possible, but it'll basically be a two birds with one stone. We're going to be doing a big performance that'll be on social media for some of the local teachers and their students and stuff like that. And then at that event, also teachers will be able to come, and for an hour or two, we'll have just one or two hour-long sessions about various topics. And one of the topics will most definitely be performance anxiety. So it will be, because one of the girl that we're doing it with, that's her education is in music, performance anxiety, and different things like that. So it will be really cool. So I'm super excited. So anybody who's in Colorado, so there's Evelyn, I think Carrie, are you in Colorado? Maybe not. No, I think Kara is in Colorado. So there's a few people that are. If you guys are really looking to get one in your area, you really want one, let me know and see if you can get some colleagues, friends that would want to go to that, because if we have interest in an area and enough people, then we're more likely to go there sooner. So let me know.
Are the people who are coming to this conference, can their students perform an ensemble performance?
Yeah, so the details haven't been completely fleshed out. But I really want to make that happen. So hopefully, yes. They'll definitely be able to attend for something. I'm not sure. I think the idea is the two sides of this, the teacher and then the social media, where we need to get more our ideas meshed a little bit. But I think that's going to happen. Yeah.
All right.
So it'll be really cool. Really
that
exciting.
sounds exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think I have everyone's. If I don't, I'm just gonna save the chat here and make sure that I can access it, and we'll see how everyone's doing next week.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Karen.
All
Bye,
right.
everybody. Thank you so much.
See you later. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.